half of the people between the age of 45 and 54 do not have $115,000 in retirement savings.
Hope is not a strategy, okay? And so please don't use cookie cutters data from articles to benchmark where you are for retirement. The most important thing in retirement is not how much you've saved, it's how much income you can create.
Enough is a very strange term. Do you have enough? Well, it depends on what you plan on doing.
They put money into the 401k, but once it got in the 401k, sat there in cash. Look, in today's video, we're going to be looking at shocking savings data based on the average retiree. And this is from a Yahoo article that we were forwarded. People love these average, statistics. These are really, really interesting. Yeah. But after helping folks retire for years, we know that figuring out how much you actually need can be a headache, but also we don't want, cookie cutter advice, and you get conflicting data from all of these sources. So we're going to reveal some of the eye-opening statistics that we just saw about retirement savings and show you some practical ideas to create a more secure retirement regardless of your current savings level. So let's get right into it. This article from Yahoo, I'm sure we'll link it in the show notes here. These are estimates from the Federal Reserve Board. Okay, so pretty good data set here. And what they're showing is what their average retirement savings estimates are. Okay, so these aren't exact, and you'll get these all over the place from all types of different places. But the average 45 to 54-year-old, so pre-retirees, $313,000 in retirement savings. Now, to be fair, and then the median for that age group is about 115. Okay, now that is shocking. Mm-hmm. That is scary.
Yeah.
What that's not taking into account is maybe rental real estate or, other assets. This is probably looking at just, IRAs and 401ks. But I'm going to tell you, that's going to be hard to retire on. Okay.
Yeah. I think people probably understand the difference between average and median. But average is if you take everyone's retirement and then divide it by that number of people. So some people with really high retirements, some of these rich kids or whatever that have done extremely well, that's going to make the average go up. A median is half of the people have 115 or less, half the people have 115 or above. Mm-hmm. That's why those two numbers are so different, and that's why it's kind of scary. Half of the people between the age of 45 and 54 do not have $115,000 in retirement savings.
Yeah.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure people understood. They're like 313, 15. What does that mean? Well, that is shocking.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's tough data to deal with, and I appreciate bringing some of the balance here with the statistic, right? Because sometimes these are challenging. And look, this is one criticism that we have of some of these kind of articles, right? Is you try to figure out whether you're on track or where you are and how you benchmark against your peers, and you get this range. That range is huge.
Yeah.
And so it's like, okay, am I on track or not? Well, which figure did you look at? Do you feel better or worse based on that figure? That's not helpful. Right. That's not actionable. Yeah. And so that's what we really want to talk about, And so we just are begging you, please don't use cookie cutters from data from articles to benchmark where you are for retirement or whether you're on track. Mm-hmm. We need to create a personalized savings rate, create a personalized, projection, and figure out whether or not you're able to retire based on your numbers.
Enough is a very strange term. Do you have enough? Well, it depends on what you plan on doing.
Yeah.
Okay. If you plan on being very active, you're going to need more. If you don't plan on doing much, you don't need much. So it's very specific to you.
And a lot of variables here, right, is, what other income sources will you have? If you have big pensions, well, maybe you don't need as much retirement savings in other areas. Now, a lot of folks, pensions are going away for a lot of folks. And so this becomes a different issue. We want to personalize these conversations. So I think something that is not exactly explicit in the data, but that I want to talk about here is when we look at these numbers by age group, these numbers are lower than what we would want folks to have. And so when I'm thinking about this, what I want to go to is what are the behaviors that are drives? Because we can talk about where things are now, and we can complain about how if people aren't, the numbers are off or these different things. But our job is we're trying to educate folks. How do we improve these numbers? Mm-hmm. How do we improve these numbers overall? And one of those things is, to work on increasing savings and to contribute more to retirement accounts and be more proactive about that. What are the behaviors that we can drive? Spending less, saving more, It's the same stuff over and over again, right? But also, having a sense of where you're at and having a real benchmark of where you're at based on your goals and what you want to happen. You may look at one stat that says you've saved more than what other people have saved. You may look at one that says you've saved less. What really matters is, are you on track to meet your goals, and is your savings rate enough to be able to get there? And that has to be personalized. That's just the only way to look at it. But I think what these numbers show is that people aren't saving across the board. And look, it's not fun, but what's less fun is not having any money in retirement when you don't have time to work, or work until you're 90 unless you want to.
Yeah, or you can't work. And then
that's a whole other scenario that we really hope to not be in. The other thing that makes these numbers alarming to me, Todd, is that we're seeing this on the tail end of a decade-long plus bull market. This is when these numbers should be higher than historically, or higher than average, and so based on how well the market's doing. And so what that tells me is folks, aren't investing well, or they're trying to do everything themselves. And what the market averages and what the investor averages are often different numbers. And that's a huge concern. Or one I saw recently, someone had been contributing to their 401k for decades. They forgot to invest the money. Oh, yeah.
What?
They put money into the 401k, but once it got in the 401k,
it just sat there as cash.
Sat there in cash. And this person is a professional. They're a CPA.
Wow.
So I'm just saying, we want to double check this. This is why we work with professionals to double check that stuff is right. They're like, man, their account really hasn't grown over the years. Like, well,
because it's not invested.
But, if you're a professional, no matter what kind of profession you're in, you can do any kind of retirement planning immediately, obviously. Right. So anyway, that's a challenging one. So, we don't want to assume that just because the market's doing well, that we're doing well. We want to benchmark to our benchmark, which is our goals, not what other people are saying and what they need. And so, look, I understand a lot of this is going to seem shocking, and it's going to cause you to second guess where your retirement is headed, or even if you can retire. If you want a professional analysis of your plan, benchmark to your goals, click the link in the description, fill out a short questionnaire. After that, we'll send you a video breaking down exactly where you stand based on those assumptions and what adjustments you may want to consider. The other challenge that I see, Todd, in this type of scenario is that most advisors, even folks that have advisors, or most savings targets, like the ones that we're seeing, these are based on getting to a certain dollar amount in an account. But they're missing the key step here. What does that translate to in income in retirement? And this is huge. There's a lot of variables here, but the most important thing in retirement is not how much you've saved, it's how much income you can create. How much income can your investments create? And so we take an income-focused retirement planning approach rather than a numbers-based retirement planning approach. And that includes optimizing, claiming Social Security, taxes in retirement. What are all of your income sources? And not how big is the number, but how big is your monthly income? And is that enough to be able to cover your goals? And so, you might have someone who has saved $500,000. That might only generate $25,000 a year, or maybe it's $1 million. Depending on your risk tolerance, that might not generate enough income. Where are we going to need to make adjustments along the way? And so by focusing on how much income can your portfolio create under different market scenarios, we want to stress test those portfolios so you have a clear picture of when you would have to tighten the belt, or when you could even increase your spending in retirement based on the portfolio that you actually have. That's a much better way to do retirement planning than just hope that if you have a big enough number, everything's going to work out. Hope is not a strategy, okay? And so we want to tailor that. We want to tailor how much your portfolio can sustain in spending and what you actually plan to spend. So we need a couple numbers when we start retirement planning. What is your target savings amount? That's important, but that's not the most important. How much income do you need to meet your goals? In my opinion, the most important, the third number, is how much can your portfolio sustain in spending? What is your spending number? Not how much you do spend, how much you can spend, how much your portfolio will allow you to spend. It's a huge difference than what most people pay attention to. But we find that when you have clarity about what those numbers are, you can, in a lot of cases, retire sooner, and people do it and they feel a lot more confidence when they retire. So that's what we want to design. So to show you this, with a real life example how we use these strategies with our clients, how we find these numbers. I'm going to walk you through a case study of someone we worked with just last week who understands now that they can retire on time without having to worry about all of these market fluctuations and the craziness going on. So let's talk about this scenario. So Todd, this is one where this was the single person that came in recently, had some property, had a good chunk saved, and wondered whether or not they could retire right away. So in this scenario, they had $500,000 in non-qualified assets. They had $500,000 in IRAs, and their Social Security was going to be about $2,500 a month. Now, their spending amount was close to about $5,500 a month. And so their income gap was $3,000 a month. And they were thinking that based on their portfolio, how much risk they were willing to bear, that they were going to have to work a couple more years to be able to do it. They're very conservative. And what we did is we plugged in the numbers. We did a deep dive. We did an analysis of their portfolio. We looked at what they could sustain under their current assumptions. If they changed nothing, how well would they be able to retire? And what we found is that they could retire today without making any changes. Now, what we showed them was when they got to age, roughly 90, they ran out of money if inflation got out of control. And they were comfortable with that assumption, but I was not comfortable with that. That wasn't good enough for our projections. We want to get at least to age 100 without running out of money. By making some changes to their portfolio, by doing some tax planning and restructuring where their income was going to come, originally they were going to just take everything from their non-qualified account first, delay the IRAs as long as possible. This is what they had found on the internet is the best way to do it. Cookie cutter advice. That was going to cause them to run out of money sooner. By restructuring their retirement income plan, figuring out how much their portfolio could actually sustain, we could actually sustain a much higher spending number than what they wanted.
Wow.
By refiguring it, we could suspend up to $8,500 a month. Which is a significant increase. Now, what that translated to for them was they're going to be able to travel. This is someone who wants to travel, who wants to do more traveling, and who wants to spend their money a little bit earlier rather than hope everything works out. And so by making these adjustments, figuring out, do they have enough saved? How do we reposition the portfolio? And then figure out what they can spend. They feel a lot better. They're going to be able to retire right away. And they feel happier about where they are in their retirement. And so, this is what the power of clarity is understanding what your options are. And we did that by gathering their data, doing analysis, and working through the planning process together with them. So look, now you know that, some of the shocking data behind the average savings for retirees and some ways to help boost your plan's success rate, figuring out not just, how much an average person should have, but how much you should have, how much income that can create in retirement, and how much you can actually spend based on your risk tolerance and your portfolio. Now, look, there's a ton of factors to consider, and we want to make sure you walk away from this video feeling really comfortable with your own plan. And so if you want to double check that your retirement is headed in the right direction, click the link below and fill out the questionnaire. We'll put together a short video. After that, it'll show you some of the details about, whether or not you've saved enough, how much your plan could sustain, and whether or not you're on track for retirement. And so we look forward to seeing you soon and seeing you in the next video.
Thank you.